The Animorphs need to pick out a morph for the taxons to turn into, so Cassie and Jake fly down to the gardens, which for some reason the Yeerks have not thought to destroy. It should be obvious to the Yeerks by now that the local zoo has been a major resource for the Animorphs, but while they're willing to level the business district for a tactical advantage, the gardens is still in one piece. It's not open, obviously, but the animals are all still there and alive. A staff member still manages to get in to feed them. Now that's job dedication. Give that person a raise. The two Animorphs settle on anacondas, which are similar enough in shape to taxons while being their polar opposite in terms of metabolism. While they're looking for specimens, Jake pops a pretty big question. Cassie, you ever wonder what happens if we win? You ever think about that? All the time. Nothing will ever be the same. People will know the galaxy is full of life, full of intelligent species. We'll have this huge rush of technological change. There'll be nothing to stop us from being a space-traveling species. Humans on the moon, on Mars, maybe colonizing planets all around the galaxy. And there's the morphing technology. Can you imagine what that's going to mean? Cassie nodded. I guess I don't think about that stuff so much. I guess I think more about us, you and me, and all of us. I took her in my arms. The anaconda's habitat was probably not the most romantic place on Earth, but it felt safe. You know I love you. I love you too, Jake, she said, and put her head on my shoulder. I guess if we win, if we survive, maybe we should, get married and all. I mean, eventually. I know we're young, but man, we've been through enough that it should count for a few extra years, shouldn't it? I don't know what I expected her answer to be, but I didn't expect her to start crying, and not tears of joy either. I would like that eventually, she said. Well, that's not your fairy tale answer to a marriage proposal, is it? Cassie says they just have no idea what kind of people they'd be if they survived this. How would they cope in a world where they no longer have to fight, have to fear for their lives? How do they restart their lives after this? It's a fair point, and they agree to wait a year after all this before broaching the subject of marriage again. So Jake acquires an anaconda and heads off to where he agreed to meet Arbron. He was told to come alone, but fuck that, the rest of the team have morphed fleas and are hiding in Jake's pubic hair. No, really, that's kind of what's implied here. Where are you guys anyway? Where in my body did you end up after I demorphed? Rachel answered, Gotta tell you, cousin, I don't know where we are exactly, and I don't really want to know. Good point. Marco just bit you, Axe reported. If I understand the physiology of flea bites correctly, you will experience an itching sensation later, and then we'll know precisely where we were. That's a pleasant thought, I said. Well, man, isn't Marco going to be embarrassed when he finds out? The setup is Jake gets into a car, a VW Beetle, because having it be a Mustang might actually be a reference you could make with Arbron, and we can't have that. The car is then dropped down a taxon tunnel, where Jake finds a giant sea of alien centipedes waiting for him. Arbron has set up a little dirt podium, and without much instruction, Jake demonstrates morphing to them, concluding by morphing Anaconda and presenting it as the taxon's future forms. Florida retirement for taxons, as Jake puts it. It's hard to read taxon body language, but they seem pleased, and Arbron guarantees the taxon's assistance. Arbron then asks for the rest of the Animorphs to demorph. He knew they were there the entire time. And then it's conflicted loyalties time, because who should pop into the scene but Tom? It seems Tom is also working directly with this faction of taxons. And I don't think it's meant to come off this way, but Arbron kind of seems like Tom's stooge here. I mean, I know Arbron doesn't have the same kind of history with the guy as the Animorphs do, but he doesn't seem to show any reasonable doubt about having Tom as an ally. So here's the deal. Tom wants to break off from the Yeerk Empire. He thinks Fizzer 1 is a fool and their days on Earth numbered. So he and his little team of Yeerks are willing to help the Animorphs take the pool ship, as long as they get the Blade ship and are allowed to leave the system to find a new corner of the universe to kick around in. Tom's offer? He has all the access codes to the pool ship, meaning Axe doesn't have to do any time-consuming hacking when on board. Oh, also, Tom programmed the codes to cycle every 15 minutes, making hacking outright impossible. Jake agrees, but tentatively, ready to back off from the deal at the first sign of trouble. As the Animorphs fly back to camp, Jake works through everything in his head, cataloging all their resources and allies, working out Tom's possible motivations, that this is almost certainly a move against Vision 1 specifically. Tom let slip that Vision 1 had been holding him back from advancing in ranks. Suddenly, it all comes to him. A grand master plan. All the pieces are there for a guaranteed victory. A victory brought by bloodshed and sacrifice, but a victory nonetheless. Jake gets tunnel vision from this point on, and starts putting things in motion, no matter how uncomfortable or morally questionable these actions are. I would suspect that, in the original plan, this is where the book would have ended, with Megamorphs 5 picking things up with the Animorphs carrying out this plan. A lot of stuff happens off-screen in the final third of this book. For example, Jake assigns Marco to finally track down the goddamn Chi. They've been no-call, no-show for months now. If there had been a Megamorphs 5, I have no doubt that we would have had a chapter from Marco's point of view as he tracks Eric King down. But as it stands, Marco has an adventure and we don't get to read about it. He comes back with Eric and is all, "Wow, that got hairy there for a minute." It turns out that it wasn't actually hard. The King household was destroyed, but the Chi stronghold underneath remained intact and undiscovered. Jake tells Eric that they need his help in taking the pool ship, which Eric declines. Doing so would require a lot of violence that Eric's programming won't allow. Not unless they're howlers, of course. Then we can throw the rulebook out the window. Jake predicted this response, so he alters the offer. "We know you can't fight us. So we're going to take you, carry you if we have to, put you in a position where you'll cooperate because refusing to cooperate will force us to take lives. Your refusal to cooperate would be the trigger for killing. Axe, bring your prisoner." I dispatched Axe and Cassie to take a prisoner, a known controller, a human controller, Chapman, and he was not happy. "Axe, if I tell you to kill this controller, will you do it?" I asked him. "Yes," Axe answered truthfully. "He is a ranking Yeerk, an enemy who has done great damage to human freedom." "This is low," Eric grated. "This is so far beneath you, Jake." Weird, blackmailing a creature you know is physically capable of obliterating you down to your individual molecules. Weird trusting that he can't do any such thing. "Sorry," I said again, "but we'll keep you in a position where every time you refuse to help, we take a life. And I'll make you this promise. Your help will minimize the casualties." Yikes, this is getting soul-crushing. Jake's master plan apparently includes burning every bridge the Animorphs ever had. By the way, be sure to wave goodbye when you get to this part of the book, because this is the last time we're ever going to see Chapman. Yes, the most recurrent secondary villain of the series, whose tragic backstory offered the first solid theme of shades of grey for Animorphs, who was a major player in the Andalite Chronicles. He's left tied up in a cave, never to be seen or mentioned again. Oh, hell, Chapman and Arbron in the same book. That's another wasted opportunity. We also get a scene of Jake giving some secret instructions to Rachel. We don't know yet what he told her, but it seems dangerous, and Rachel leaves with a "if I don't come back, don't blame yourself" sentiment. Wow, this is all sunshine and lollipops. Now let's have a scene where Jake yells at disabled people. James and the auxiliaries show up, and they're all still pretty heartbroken over losing one of their own. Jake tells James he needs everyone ready for action, and when James tries to reason with Jake that some of these kids aren't ready, that they have families to think about, Jake flips out. His position isn't unreasonable. This is the last chance the Animorphs have to save Earth. But you know what? Jake isn't patent. He doesn't have the gravitas to inspire. So when he berates James over this in front of the rest of the auxiliaries, all he comes off as is a psychopath. Jake is losing control of himself in a way that is typically attributed to Rachel. And worst of all, Jake recognizes this in himself, but feels he has to do this anyway. Finally, it's back to General Super Sloppy Double Dare, who's had his 3 days to suss out who among his ranks are controllers. Jake gives him the plan, but the general isn't too pleased with it. With all due respect to your people, son, they may be great in hand-to-hand combat, but you're guerrilla fighters by nature. Your abilities are geared for that kind of warfare. You're asking me for a good old-fashioned cavalry charge. You're asking me for the charge of the Light Brigade. Sometime around the halfway point of the series, and we're starting to make some serious comparisons to real-world wars, usually through Jake. Sometimes it'd be throwaway passages, sometimes it's the whole point of the book, like with Megamorphs number 3, Elfangor's Secret, or number 47, The Resistance. No matter the degree of reference, however, there's usually some kind of explanation as to what this means. Except this one. This reference to the charge of the Light Brigade goes by without comment, and I feel this bit of missing context is important in understanding what General Double Rainbow is really saying here. The charge of the Light Brigade was a British light cavalry charge made against Russian forces in the Crimean War. There had been some miscommunication among the chain of command, and the cavalry was supposed to go after a retreating Russian battalion, but was instead sent on a frontal assault on a different, well-fortified battalion, resulting in heavy British casualties and no gain whatsoever. The charge was immortalized in poem by Alfred Tennyson in 1854. Forward, the Light Brigade! Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew someone had blundered. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. What General Doubleday is saying here is not that this will be hard, or that this will be a necessary suicide mission. Doubleday is saying that their part of this mission is wrong, that it is strategically unsound, that these are the wrong orders, that Jake is telling him to ride his men into the valley of death. Not a shining endorsement for Jake's plan there. I get that Jake and the rest of the Animorphs have more experience in dealing with the Yeerk specifically, but I would concede to the actual general when it comes to military tactics. This is important because the thing we'll learn about Jake's plan is it's pretty not very good. This is probably the most criticized thing about this book by fans, the fact that Jake's plan doesn't hold water the more you think about it. I have been critical of a character's choices in many of my reviews, but that criticism stems from either the book wanting us to believe that the character's choices make sense, or I'm complaining about them for the sake of entertainment. I kind of hope you've been able to tell which have been which throughout the years. While I understand that we want our heroes to be smart and win the day, that's not what this series is about anymore. The entire final arc is full of characters making decisions that get people hurt or even killed. From Marco breaking that window to save his father, to the Hork-Bajir stubbornly protecting their valley, to Jake telling the Animorphs to sleep on whether or not they should save their families, to Cassie giving up the morphing cube, to Axe contacting the Andalite fleet behind his team's back. The final arc has had a significant number of decisions with compounding negative consequences, and Jake's final plan is the capper to all of that. That's the point here. Jake himself starts to realize this. I floated and waited and went over my plan again and again. I could see holes in it now. I could see nothing but holes. It would never work. It would never work. This is not going to be the final battle in the summer blockbuster sense of the word. It has more in common with Shakespearean tragedy. The final story for Animorphs is the tragic descent of Jake, from a leader driven by logic and doing the right thing to someone so stubborn that it'll get people killed. There's more Macbeth than MacGyver here. And yeah, I'll break down how Jake's plan doesn't work for the lulz, but don't for a second think that this is not an intentional part of the story. We all want our heroes to succeed, but Kay Applegate is adamant about that not happening here. So here's how it all goes down. Tom is allowed to beat up who he assumes is Cassie, tie her up, and pose her as a captured Animorph, assuming that the rest of the Animorphs are hiding as insects on her body. Unbeknownst to Tom is that this isn't actually Cassie, but Eric disguised as Cassie, the injuries just being cosmetic. Jake is the only one there as insect. Tom drives his prisoner to the pool ship, somehow bypassing the biofilters, and delivers her directly to Visor 1. So far, all according to the plan Tom laid out. Tom tells Visitor 1 that the Animorphs and their military allies plan a frontal assault as a diversion to sneak into the pool ship. Information Tom probably shouldn't be giving out, but it probably could have been inferred anyway by Visitor 1. Tom then reveals the Taxon Rebellion. It seems they're about to assault the construction of the new Yeerk pool. Some Yeerks then bring in a rather erratically acting Taxon, whom Tom identifies as a member of this rebellion. Tom suggests he take the blade ship and deal with the Taxons personally, but Visitor 1 has reservations. He needs a little something to pick up his mood. "I don't like so much good luck," Visitor 1 hissed. "I've fought to seize this planet for years. For years! And suddenly now everything falls into my hands? I don't trust good luck. For all I know, this Animorph, this Cassie creature, has managed to carry her fellow bandits in with her." "But, Visitor, the Gleet biofilter." "They've beaten the filter before," Visitor 1 shouted. No. There's something wrong here. Something very wrong. Look how she stands there, beaten, whipped, cowed. No, it's too easy. And this Taxon, how can I be sure he, too, isn't one of them? They can take any shape. How can I be sure?" "Very simply," Tom said calmly, "order the Taxon to eat the Animorph girl. If the Taxon is an Animorph morph, he will refuse. If not, then the girl, and any hidden morphs concealed on her person, will be consumed. Thus we will be sure of both." "Yes!" Visitor 1 cried. "Guards, watch every corner of this room. Shoot anything that moves. Do you hear me? Anything. Don't wait for orders. If they're here, they'll try to demorph and remorph. Shoot anything. And now, hungry brother Taxon, if you are a true Taxon, rid us of this girl." The Taxon did not hesitate. It reared up, opened its lamprey mouth, and slammed itself greedily down, teeth bared. The illusion of Cassie's death is pretty damn gory and convincing. By the way, Cassie is the worst. I'll keep saying that to the grave, but don't take that to mean I would take glee in seeing a young woman brutally beaten and torn apart. I wait till they're old women and watch them fall down the stairs. Anyway, this just tickles Visitor 1 pink, so he gives Tom the keys to the blade ship and gets ready for this weak sauce frontal assault. Of course, this isn't Cassie, so naturally the Taxon can't be a normal Taxon. It turns out to be Tobias and Morph, with the rest of the Animorphs minus Rachel and Flea Morph on him. Eric projected the image of Cassie getting eaten, so he's fine, and Toby and a fair number of her Hork-Bajir team are already on board, posing as controllers. And that's kind of hole number 1 on Jake's plan. It turns out the pool ship really isn't that hard to break into. I guess there's a lot of alien racism going on since everyone thinks all Hork-Bajir and all Taxons look the same. The biofilter wasn't a problem for the fleas hanging on Tobias, and Eric and the rest of the Chi are cloaking masters, so pretty much nobody here needed Tom to get into the Yeerk pool. There's almost no point in dealing with Tom at all, aware of his inevitable betrayal or not. The whole point in making nice with Tom is to gauge what his actions might be, but once you got that, you can pretty much knock him on the head and do everything on your terms. Again, this is a fun thing to deconstruct, but the fact that it's a bad plan is the point here. The Animorphs are forced to scatter a bit. Most of them wind up in the bowels of the pool ship, while Jake gets himself stuck on the bridge. The pool ship starts warming up its engines and slowly rises off the ground in preparation for the frontal assault, which consists of about 700 soldiers. The plan is for the pool ship to fire a wide dispersal ray to get them all in one shot, which wouldn't kill anyone immediately, but would slowly cook them like a microwave. But then Visitor 1 spots the morphed auxiliaries in the crowd, and suddenly this becomes very personal to him. These guys right here, these little Animorph fuckers, have been making his life a living hell for the last 3 years, and he'll be damned if he doesn't deliver a nasty Dracon death to each and every one of them individually. What follows is Jake sitting there, watching as every single one of the auxiliaries is brutally killed on the view screen. The shot caught the hindquarters of the rhinoceros. For a horrifying moment, the front legs kept running. The creature, a girl named Trisha, toppled forward, dug its horns into the dirt, rolled over, and was dead. "Ha ha! Good shot! They burn well, these Animorphs." I felt sick inside. I should do something. I should stop this. That was the auxiliary Animorphs down there on the ground dying. Burning. But Jake doesn't do anything. He justifies it to himself that he's the leader, that he has to stay alive to see this through. And yes, he would probably get killed if he revealed himself in any attempt to stop this. But none of this needed to happen. Every death down there, every dead child, was pointless. Consider this. There are more Chi out there than just Eric. We're never given exact numbers, but the number of Chi on Earth is at least in the double digits. All with hologram technology, all with force fields, all with alien hacking technology. It would not be hard to put on a show for the Yeerks without getting a single soldier or auxiliary hurt. In fact, if you got all the Chi on board, it might be possible to calculate out a relatively blood-free takeover, and you probably could have done it without completely alienating Eric with the hostage shenanigans. Jake kept way too much of this plan to himself, and burned a lot of bridges getting to this point. If he had kept communications open, if he hadn't gotten so stuck in a rut, he could have worked out alternatives and backup plans. But Jake is the leader. That was the important thing, I guess. So Jake led more than a dozen scared, handicapped children into an early grave. Before the pool ship can finish off the soldiers, the other Animorphs manage to disable the helm, turning off the weapons and causing the pool ship to drift. Visor 1 realizes the enemy is on board. "They are on board," Visor 1 said, aghast. "They're here. They're on board. They sacrificed the girl and used her as a Trojan horse." And yes, I know what a Trojan horse is. I've been doing a lot of reading, and now I'm comfortable just throwing a reference like that out there. Hey, I realized I had a lot of Earth culture to catch up on. Man, remember 3 years ago when I didn't even know what cats were? And we have come a long way, haven't... Oh, right, the Animorphs, kill them! So Visor 1 leads a team of Hork-Bajir into engineering, and they shoot the place up in hopes of killing every single microbe inside. But the Animorphs have already evacuated into the vents and relocate inside a closet. Is it weird for an alien mothership to have closets? I guess not. Humans probably don't have a monopoly on closets in the universe, but alien closets just feel wrong. Everyone else is worried that Rachel might have been killed along with the auxiliaries, so Jake finally reveals what she's doing. She's keeping an eye on Tom to stop him from getting away with the blade ship. She's alone in an alien ship with about 100 Yeerks, and she is solely responsible for its fate. Everyone rightfully freaks out. Again, none of this had to have happened. They didn't really need Tom for this plan. They could easily have taken him out days ago, and then nobody would have had the blade ship. And even if you had to have had somebody on that thing, why not send a Chi along too? Rachel can't hack these systems, but a Chi can. Rachel doesn't know the first thing about shutting down a blade ship from the inside, but a Chi might. And why did Jake hold off from telling everybody about this until now? What happened to discussing these plans, figuring them out as a team? Guys, I really miss Cassie's barn. So the pool ship rises to low orbit, with the blade ship approaching. Eric has gone and disabled a lot of the systems to make the pool ship a sitting duck, because his ethical programming makes a bunch of people unable to defend themselves, ethical. The only chance the Animorphs have is to make it back to the bridge. They might have 1 or 2 shots from the pool ship's main cannons to disable the blade ship before Tom betrays Visor 1 and blows the whole thing up. But, along the way, the Animorphs find themselves making a detour into the pool itself. Axe pushed past me, began punching at active screens and arrays of controls. "There is a flush sequence," he said. "I have to override the safety protocols." He turned his stock eyes to me, even as his main eyes guided swift, nimble fingers. "It can be done." "Okay," I said. "The pool is full to capacity. These are the Yeerks that were rescued from the Earth-based Yeerk pool, plus the bulk of the unhosted Yeerks recently transported here." "Some reason you're telling me all this, Axeman?" "Jake, there are 17,372 Yeerks in this pool." That rocked me. Visor 1 had to know we were here, on the loose. He had to run for the bridge and not stay to win the fight in engineering. 17,000 living creatures, thinking creatures. How could I give this order? Even for victory, even to save Rachel, how could I give this kind of order? They could have stayed home, I thought. No one had asked them to come to Earth. Not my fault. Not my fault. Theirs. No more than they deserved. Aliens, parasites, subhuman. Flush them, I said. And just like that, Jake kills 17,000 Yeerks, jettisoning them into space. No reason, no strategic value. He isn't even holding them hostage. 17,000 defenseless Yeerks. Murder. This mirrors a scene all the way back at number 6, The Capture, when Jake boiled about 100 Yeerks to death in a portable Yeerk pool. It was just as senseless, but back then, the Animorphs were working on far less information, had only known the Yeerks as vicious monsters that had to be destroyed. Now, Jake knows better. They have gotten to understand the Yeerks on a whole new level, even made friends with some of them. But 3 years later, in a similar situation, only 170 times bigger, Jake makes the same ruthless decision. Everyone gets to the bridge. Visor 1 is waiting. The Blade ship is closing in, and Tom has made his betrayal to the Visor known. They only have one shot at this. But that shot is taken from them. Eric has gotten into the weapon systems and powered down everything. Our book ends with the Blade ship moving in for the kill. Post-book follow-up. Yeah, this is some pretty heavy stuff. As a final battle, as a final thesis from Applegate as to the horrors of war, it's very intense, very memorable, and very unsettling, especially for more hardcore fans. I know some people who can't make it through this book. These are characters whom they have grown to love over 5 years of publication, and the final arc, especially these final 2 books, ruin these characters. I mean, ruin them as people, not ruin them as characters. Jake is the central focus here, of course, and this book goes out of its way to destroy his credibility as a leader, his abilities for rational thought, and just about every friendship he had. I can get why this might be painful to read, but it is a tale that needed to be told. That said, it could have been told just a little bit better. We need to know about the whole Megamorphs 5 thing. A lot of the weird blind spots in the story start to make sense. There are whole action beats that are glossed over or skipped because they happen to characters besides Jake, things that clearly would have gotten their own chapters in a Megamorphs book, and I can't help but feel that some alternative perspectives might have brought some counterbalance to the Jake's Gone Crazy show. It's not as noticeable if you don't know about Megamorphs 5 while reading it, so I might have just ruined the book for everyone. Sorry. In any case, I think the original Megamorphs idea would have been better, but it's not a flaw for the book itself. No, that honor goes to the Taxons. The Taxon/Arbron subplot is nothing but dead weight here. There is no point in bringing Arbron back except for fan pandering. He doesn't do anything. He offers nothing interesting to the story, and there's no reason he couldn't have. His connections with Elfangor and the events of the Andalite Chronicles create some natural character situations that are never touched upon. His history between the Andalite Chronicles and now is left completely unexplored, and him being a stooge for Tom needed better justification and further exploration. The only reason to have Arbron here is for the convenience of having a taxon that can thought speak to help streamline this taxon rebellion thing. Not that the taxon rebellion thing actually amounts to anything. We spend so much time on a faction that doesn't even show up in the final battle. They're off twiddling their alien centipede thumbs while everyone else is doing the real work. I get that Applegate wanted to drive home the Taxons are also not automatically evil thing. That's kind of her main ingredient in her Shades of Grey theming. But there's already a lot of that in the Andalite Chronicles, and here it just feels like stalling for time. So that's my main gripe with the book. The pacing is pretty quick, there's a lot of information to take in, but Applegate has actually been known to thrive at that speed. It's actually pretty close to the pacing of number 1 The Invasion way back when. I wish more stuff from the final arc actually played into the final battle. There's a serious hole where the National Guard used to be, and I don't know how hard it could have been to just name drop the Blue Band Hork-Bajir, but Captain Doubleday is a solid new character, and I'm glad the series finally remembered that she existed, even if Jake didn't. In effect, this is the final battle. The next book includes the final moments of the final battle and an extended epilogue for the characters. This is the climax of Animorphs. It might not be what you hoped for these characters, but looking back, it feels inevitable. I give number 53 The Answer an 8 out of 10.